Hi, I'm Melvin Winter, and I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel. So this video will be a little bit different. I just started this channel. It's kind of like when you start a new job and you get like 6 months to say that I'm new. I just started this channel, and before we get underway and start diving into all the topics that I want to discuss, or if you've seen a few of my videos and you want to get to know me a little bit more, hear a bit more about my experience and kind of why, not why you should care, but like where I'm kind of coming from, this video is to serve that purpose. So also, given this video's length, maybe you think of this as like a little coffee date where you get to know me and like, let's just like act like I have the benefit of getting to know you. Maybe you tell me things in the comments that help. So if you would enjoy that, maybe you save the video and you can't watch it now, maybe save the video and come back. But I've got my coffee, I've got some water. Yeah. Additionally, I want this video to be a little bit more fun and open than maybe a typical video would be. Hopefully I don't say a lot, or too much. I said it again. But in typical videos, I'm coming with a mission. I have something very specific that I want to say. So it'll still be lighthearted and I'll still deliver the points that I want to. It just won't feel like a comedy bit. And so with that, like, this will be a lot more relaxed and a little bit more of a peek behind the purposeful movement, if you will. So the other videos will be more buttoned up, but the buttons, think of the buttons as on like a linen shirt instead of like a suit or like a dress shirt, whatever. So where do we begin? As is custom, we'll begin at the beginning. I will say that given the nature of some of this stuff, it might feel a little dark and personal at the beginning, but I will lighten it up and kind of deliver not only my rationale, but like the point, and I don't know, I think it will describe well where I'm coming from. With that being said, and given the nature of some of the things that are to follow, this is not one of those accounts, but it's important to say that I am not a mental health professional. I cannot diagnose anyone. Everything that I say is alleged and is from my own subjective personal experience and is not a diagnosis or medical or legal opinion. So, like, let's dive in. So, I was born in the South, which will occasionally come out in my speech. I am the youngest of 3 savior opinions. And interestingly, both of my parents were in the military. There was a system whenever they went that they could like kind of go together. Post-military, one became a pastor and the other became a reverend. So I guess you could kind of call us like the religious Incredibles. Sort of, kind of. And so that military experience had like, I mean, I guess you could say it was foundational to my early like circumstances, but they both left the military like while I was relatively young. So I didn't even know that I could at any point be considered a military brat until like that episode of That's So Raven when her cousin came to town. I was watching and putting pieces together like, wait a minute, I think that makes me a military brat. My siblings more so than I was, but to the degree that it matters, it counts. And so after that military experience, family is like planted stateside around the rest of our family. And like we're moving more into the ministry, into Christian ministry, Baptist. That wasn't supposed to be like, but it was just specific. And so this sets a very important but challenging foundation. This is where So the reason why this is pertinent is that complementary to this foundation, post-military service, very active in ministry, alongside that, I had all the trappings and the subjective experience of a narcissistic family system. The typical narcissistic family system where you have a narcissistic parent, an enabling parent, and like the typical roles that the children tend to fall into. And so those roles typically are, you have a scapegoat child, which bears the sins of the family system. And so you're the reason why everything is wrong. And like, if you weren't so awful, things would be better around here. You have the invisible child who tends to not receive attention, care, and is just like invisible. And then you have the golden child who is the pride and joy of the family and who is meant to essentially be the heir apparent. And so, and funny enough, despite everything that I say later, I invite you to take a guess of which child I was in the system. If you guessed golden child, you guessed correctly. I was given toys, cars, freedom, preference, as long as I perform the roles and expectations of the family system. A whole lot of you can take over the world, don't be like your sibling. And the roles and expectations were to be a good Christian, to be quiet to the harm that I saw, to preserve the family's lofty religious image, and to drink the Kool-Aid that I and my family was better than everybody else. Meanwhile, we were all emotionally enmeshed, so we're all feeling and experiencing the same emotions. There was no boundaries between what was mine, what's yours, what's hers. It's just we all just have to feel the same thing. But inside of that, there were individuals who could dictate and determine what the emotional tone was, the parents, and those who are only recipients and had to be the holders, the transmuters, the processors, the recipients of those emotions, like the children. So you can imagine what the emotional imprint of an unconscious that I am meant to feel and be bombarded often against my will by emotions that aren't mine, what that can kind of do for the roles you take on in the world, what you kind of expect and ask for in relationships, as well as a slew of other things. Because as a child, you don't know how to grapple with and engage with like complex psychological tactics and like big emotions that don't belong to you. And so what would be improper or inappropriate is just kind of foundational, and that's just like the way that things are. But while I was given all of this stuff, and trust me, people saw me with some stuff, I absolutely felt deprived of attention, of real cultivation, and preparation for life beyond high school, beyond college. So being the golden child came with a flashy benefits package, but it was empty of a lot of real connection, a lot of real depth. And of course, no one notices because like everything looks so shiny and perfect from the outside, and nobody can see kind of the pain that's kind of brewing and stewing and fermenting because I am driving a loaner car, a very nice looking loaner car. Child development aside, the main problem in and with this setup, religious family, golden child position, for me was that I was in the closet. Yes, child, I am a rainbow flag. This golden child's got a little sweetness. So that preferred position always felt precarious and unstable. So I'm getting all of this stuff, and like from very young, I'm noticing that like if the news drops, it's over for me. And so I don't want to make light of any of this, because I do know that this is like a real experience, my subjective experience. So only from my vantage point, I'm not a medical professional, but I've cried countless tears about this. I have processed a lot of this in therapy, a lot of it outside of therapy. And so I can see the equipping in it for what I hope to do in the world. Now, I don't think that like, oh, that should have happened for me to be equipped to do the work. No. But I can't change that, and that's just kind of what happened. But yeah, so I will laugh because I've done a lot of the sobbing and the grief and and trudge through life with a broken heart. But like, yeah. So back to it. This also meant a couple things. One, it meant that in all the days that I was in my parents' care, I couldn't develop my whole person and identity. I couldn't access it. I couldn't play around in it. At some point, the switch happened, and it's just like, okay, these t-shirts got to come off my head because that's going to blow my cover. And so I will talk about this, not this specifically, but it's in the pot from which my work comes, is that when you have a part of your identity stifled and suppressed, for me, that was my sexual identity. That was the later romantic relating that would come as a result. That was the things that I would have been enthusiastic about, that would have keyed individuals into, or people around me and family and school or whatever, that I was gay. When you have a part of your personality kind of under lock and key, that absolutely impacts the rest of your personality. Think about like driving with 3 tires. Think about like reaching under the hood and like just closing a valve, any valve. That's going to affect the rest of the system. And so anything, and then because kids don't have a great understanding of the world, of cause and effect, of any number of things, you can't determine which actions will get you exposed. So you go very, very stiff and you go deep inside so that you learn to say your lines and perform in the ways that which you think other people want you to kind of perform. And so if I can't express myself freely, then I have to focus heavily on how I'm delivering my message, how I speak, my diction, all of that stuff. And while I am focusing on that, I can't focus on my message and what I would actually intend to convey. And so I have to dim and dull my light so that other people can't see it, because the light has like a rainbow-like tint to it, if you will. And two, this meant that I became a super Christian. I bludgeoned myself and my identity with the Bible daily. And then at Bible study and at church on Sunday and at rehearsal, at any number of things that are on a church's schedule. And all of this was in secret. And of course, people knew and could guess and surmise, but people that want you to be a certain way can delude themselves into seeing and believing whatever they want to believe. And that is, family aside, that is just the nature of being a human with expectations. And so it wasn't simply that there were scriptures that were directed at my perceived immorality. It was that I took my whole person to be abominable. And so I started reading the Bible for myself probably like the end of 6th grade, at least in middle school. So this is starting very young, that I am alone in my room engaging with this ancient text of like laws and whatever. This is not about like what the Bible is and like its usefulness, because it certainly has usefulness and value. I am engaging with the law as a teenager and pulling back from it, like I'm awful. And like if I step a toe out of line, I have to contend with this idea of eternal damnation. And so spoiler alert, I no longer believe that. It's not a part of my belief system, but the family system and then this self-programming of hate, of futility. Hate aside, there's this sense of there's nothing that you can do about it. You've done the fasting, you've done the deliverance services, and there's nothing that you can do to get rid of this stain. And that stain has just put you on the fast track to hell. But we do still need you to show up and offer your gifts to the church. That's still, you got us on that solid, right? Like it was bad. Like I would read the Bible every day for like an hour. And then, especially when I was like reading the Old Testament, I would like fall asleep and then start crying and feel sad that God was angry with me. And like, that's not the way that any human can really contend with. Like the God of the universe is angry with me because I fell asleep while reading the Bible. Like that's just, babe, no, like that's not what this is. And so thank God that that's not anymore my experience. And so what all of this has meant for me is that I've had to see through the fog of what I was taught and told to believe about myself, to see and develop myself, my true self, above and beyond being gay. Like who cares? Like, but to be an integrated system of, I can accept this identity about myself that people are going to have feelings about. But how I feel and how I hold that is most important, because I'm the one that has to live from this experience. And so I've had to look and peer through all that fog and all those illusions so that I can create a life that feels authentic to me and the unique impact that I know that I can make. And to be clear, or at least a little less foggy, it wasn't all bad, but when a system is built on deception, illusions, manipulation, and self-sacrifice, even those good times get colored through that same lens. So it begins to call everything in question. So your good intentions can get lost in a lot of the repeated harm that I may have experienced in my subjective and alleged experience. I'm a blogger, child. And so I'll be honest, if it's not already obvious, this has been a core wound of mine that has influenced how I relate to others, what I will allow myself to have, and how I exist and show up in the world. Like if, jumping ahead here, 25 years you lived thinking that you were filthy and awful, you don't really relate like you have any self-worth or value. However, that has been the core wound, but that is not the foundation of who I am. So I'm not defined by that experience. It informs a lot, but I think, and again, this is after healing work, I think it really sets the stage for the rest of my life and what has been the rest of my life, because this isn't like recent. And so as it relates to my experience and what I bring here, those what I would call early life mission parameters set me out on a journey to discover, define, and construct my true self and uncover the identity that I can powerfully operate from in the world. Woo! I am doing my best. The lack of love that I was presented with means that I have to cultivate and create that experience for myself and others. And it also lets me know that I can. This is not good science. This is my own subjective experience, but I feel like the depth or the size of the gash or crater or wound is directly proportionate to the capacity of good or desired feeling that you can feel. So I'm gonna be compensated well for all of those experiences. And I know that it'll be incredibly sweet because it'll be honest, it'll be with my full and open heart, whereas I just didn't have that much agency before. And additionally, this gave me a very keen eye for narcissistic systems and how they seek to stifle your light and siphon your attention and energy. And so as we're noticing kind of in the world, a lot of what we're seeing is narcissistic systems where certain individuals who either don't have access to their light, who have snuffed it out, will find creatives, find people with some form of luminescence and essentially try to trap them into giving over those skills and abilities and profits for free. So they don't get to know their value or their actual worth. They just end up being batteries to kind of power the machine. And also, this helped me develop really strong boundaries and a really open heart for helping people uncover and define and discover their own selves. And so maybe that's you. So it's not all bad. Like once upon a time it was very bad. And then it was like better and then a little bad and then better. And like now I can see the challenging and often and sometimes painful opportunity that's in that. Ooh, all right. So we are through the thick of it. So moving on. After high school, and surprisingly not motivated by my upbringing, I decided that I would pursue psychology. Seemingly completely separate from my own experience, I knew in middle school that I wanted to pursue psychology. For whatever reason, found myself fascinated by the human mind, human behavior, and how our environment shape our behavior, and like to what degree that can be kind of changed and influenced. And so initially I wanted to go into clinical psychology. I wanted to go into private practice. I wanted to be counseling and therapizing people. But as I was completing my coursework, I started noticing that felt like the wrong choice. And not the wrong choice because there was necessarily a right choice, but it felt like I was committing to feeling and processing and experiencing other people's emotions. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was tired of that. Spent. But I was sincere. It finally clicked for me one day when I was in like a bathroom on campus. Like, it's like one of those moments that just kind of like sticks out in your mind. During this time, I was still super religious. Like, I was super religious. Like, I was of course involved in clubs and stuff on campus, but I think more than anything, I was involved in church, on campus, off campus, all kinds of stuff. But I was in the bathroom and I was like, oh my gosh, like in my work, I can take people's problems home, I can pray for them, and then they can get better. And then something kind of clicked, and I don't know if it was in that bathroom, I do remember saying that, but something clicked that was like, absolutely not. The alarm bells were going off, inner me was like, I've had enough. And I was getting ready to sign up to professionally help process and work through emotions that weren't mine. And at this point, I hadn't worked through my emotions. I wasn't aware of the perceived and subjective nature of my early environment. I was just, I'm really good at feeling emotion, I'm really good at processing things, and I wouldn't say, like, this is like a meaningful career. And so shortly after that, and I think weeks maybe, was like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't do clinical psych. And so at that point, I was like super withdrawn from like the research lab that I participated in, my coursework, because like here I am, I had known I wanted to be a clinical psychologist since the 7th or the 8th grade. And here I am in my junior year of college, like, okay, I don't know what comes next. And so luckily, after some floundering, I stumbled upon the field of industrial and organizational psychology. The definition for industrial organizational psychology, I'll call it IO psychology moving forward, is that it's like the science of humans at work. It's how we understand the workplace, the different forces at play, like the organizational aspects, the social groupings of individuals. It's matching individuals with specific skills and abilities and knowledge to the right role. It's all of that. It's taking a practical or like vocational approach towards the study of humans, the study of the mind, the study of human behavior. And so this felt perfect because I could study human behavior, I could study the mind, and it have like broad applicability in a place where people tend to be. And also, happening alongside this, I had been pondering and contemplating the question of life's purpose since around the 10th grade. And so this felt like a merging of my interest in humans, human behavior, the mind, as well as the idea that there is work that we could be doing that is satisfying, that's meaningful, and that employs, not in a professional sense, but employs, like utilizes the best that we have to offer. And so moving in the direction of IL psychology also introduced me to the world of assessments, which I love. And so I'm not like rabid about them, but, and I'll probably talk about this later. I have things that I want to say in depth more about that. But like, I feel like assessments are like mirrors that you can hold up where they reflect certain aspects of yourself that you might not have been aware of. And if we think back to my early environment where I didn't feel that I was reflected and I could see myself, like assessments gave me something kind of concrete because they were often mental and like words, but like concrete to say, oh, I do employ that skill. I do employ that ability. I do employ that trait, and I can now focus on it and then utilize that to some degree. And so with all that, I pursued and completed a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology in New York City, of all places. And so I learned all about how organizations work socially, how to develop and train people in the workplace. I learned about leadership development, about coaching and consulting engagements. It was a really fun degree that I thoroughly enjoyed and think that I will draw from for my entirety, I guess. And then after graduate school, I worked in consulting briefly and in healthcare tech. Both places where I learned that the fun and anticipation that you have in the classroom doesn't always translate to the work environment. But happening alongside that, at the tender age of 27, I finally came out publicly. And like you guessed it, to a whole lot of, we know, we were just waiting on you. Like that's something for another day. And before then, I had come out to a few friends, and like I was in New York City experiencing the best that the city had to offer. But this was whenever I came out publicly. I think there started to be a rub between the freedom that my family so far away could see me experiencing and the clamminess that they might experience on phone calls or in person. And it's just like, you with your little friends and you acting out and like, here, you're mute. Like, what's going on? But after I came out, all hell broke loose. All hell broke loose. Like, let's call it. And it was then that I saw my upbringing and my family system with more clarity and honesty. And those were some of the darkest days, like dark days that led to a depression, and a pretty deep one that if I could keynote it, if I could annotate it with anything, was mainly about, and this is not to say that depression, again, I'm not a medical health professional, and this is not to say that depression needs to always be annotated or have like a theme, but if I'm looking at my circumstances and what kind of flicked that off or started that or initiated it, it was the shedding of identities. It's like everything I've built my life on, everything I've known as true, the love that I expected, that I doubted, but also anticipated that I might be able to reach for, feels really tenuous and like really shaky right now. Meanwhile, or at the same time, I'm experiencing relationships where I'm standing fully in my full personhood and meeting people that are willing to love me. And so that, like, the whole thing. And to add insult to injury, they threw me under the bus, child. Like, they threw me under. But we're gonna talk about that. Maybe we'll talk about that later. But after finally seeing these dynamics clearly, I could uproot the unstable and conditional foundations that I had built my life on and start to build a life that felt more true to me, that felt more honest, that didn't feel like at any moment somebody could just like whisper like, oh, I got your tea, I know your secret, and then now I'm in a state of anxiety for something that I'm not ashamed of. Now I couldn't choose, and that like I've already gone through the bludgeoning and survived. Now I could experience healthy connections, I could experience romantic relationships, and I could finally say what I meant to say. I didn't have to say my lines, I didn't have to consider, I'm not so full, but I have to consider how the royal family would react to me talking to the press. Like, I was free at that point. I was no longer tethered by Christianity. I was no longer encumbered by upholding the family image. I could finally stand in my truth and in my light. I could be and stand in the world firmly and boldly and confidently as myself. Something that was wholly inaccessible while I was trying to be covert and trying to sneak and slip under the radar. And so since then, I've been on this winding journey of self-uncovery and emotional shedding to release trauma that never belonged to me, so I can attune myself to my own mission, to my own work in the world. And I think I've got a solid grasp on what I'm here to do and how I can help. Solid enough of a grasp for you to have a channel to meet me on. And so my vision, so in all of those years of studying purpose and reading a sacred text, learning and studying psychology of surviving emotional manipulation, emotional abuse, reality distortion, going so far as to finding a degree in work psychology, the thing that is abundantly clear to me is that each of us is a unique individual with unique abilities and unique competencies. And the reason why we struggle in life is because we don't know that we have all that uniqueness. So we're often operating outside of where we have strength, ability, and unique advantages. So we struggle. We struggle with saying our lines. We struggle with false images of ourselves that were never true, that were never ours, that we feel beholden to and kind of stuck in. And what this journey has taught me is that we make purpose out to be this lofty, unreachable thing like enlightenment, when really purpose is living a life where the majority of our time or our energy is spent doing things that are strengths, that we can derive deep and unique satisfaction and enjoyment from. Like, you might do things that I don't enjoy. So like, where you also get a distinct pleasure is, I don't want to just say related to your purpose, but like that is unique to your person. And so it is living in and working from those areas of strength, as well as deriving deep satisfaction that only you can access. Like, there are people that love calculus. Hell no. Absolutely not. Like, give me something like verbose. Give me something like wordy and poetic. Give me something that's like maybe a little bit not grounded, like, but it's fun. Like, it's got fire in it. And so all of the things that I've experienced, such as my upbringing, such as the insights that I derived from all of that, has essentially been like a course of study that I want to share wisdom, share tools, share perspectives from, that can help us live more full, embodied lives. So I have, in my experience, studied work, I've done work, I've experienced relationships, I've struggled in relationships, I've learned about attachment wounding, I've learned any number of things that I've had to walk through, had to trudge through, had to fight through to feel more planted in myself, to feel like I could turn on a camera and speak to it, knowing that somebody would see it. Like, that's a recent development. I've also studied and learned all types of systems. So like metaphysical systems, like astrology, numerology, like psychological assessments, like the Hogan, like MBTI, which is not necessarily like psychologically or psychometrically sound. The Strength Finder, which was like my first assessment that I deeply loved because of what it reflected back. But what I gather from all of these systems that has been echoed in my previous, that echoes my previous experience, is that we're all each unique and we all embody or sit. Think of like humanity as this huge grid, or like the pixels on a television screen. Each of us has a unique grid that we, or maybe multiple grids that we can work from, that we can serve from, that we can radiate our light and our gifts from, that make up the full spectrum of beauty, of color, of fluorescence that this life, this human experience can be. And if you aren't standing in your grid, if you aren't pulling from the unique space that you can pull from, we can't collectively have the best experience that we can have. And so essentially my vision is for us to each understand, to the degree possible at any given time, our unique abilities, our distinct skills, our gifts, those things that you just kind of know without knowing, that even whenever you train and develop them, it happens kind of quickly, so we can serve the world and enrich our lives and derive the most pleasure that we can from them. And not carnal pleasure, like I'm still saved. And I've also already said in a couple videos that our living from and fulfilling or utilizing our gifts, our fulfilling our individual roles serves to enrich the quality of the shared experience on the planet, because our unique contribution isn't wasted. It isn't, you aren't stuck somewhere or feel like you're powerless or like you don't have anything to offer. And so when you're living and offering the gifts and the abilities and the presence that only you can provide, we're all made better, because there is a you-sized solution that is needed in the world. There is a you formulated medicine that is needed in the world. And so my approach, foundational to all of this, is my belief that we're souls before we are humans in this experience. I believe that we are a uniquely designed shard or fractal or slice of consciousness that is to experience in a unique way. That's why you can enjoy things in a way that other people can't enjoy. I also believe that before we embark on these lives on earth, we plan a lot of the parameters and a lot of the dynamics of our experience on earth, and that we arrange these circumstances not only to fulfill some lofty mission like purpose, some lofty moral obligation, but we set these circumstances and parameters up so we understand the full range of what it means to be human, but we can also deeply experience and deeply enjoy the pleasures that you can only delight in a 3D experience. Like, we are really getting into the sauce that I'm like always cooking with, but that's how I'm seeing things. Now, of course, we have free will, and like the choices that we make on earth like determines in a lot of cases the awfulness that we experience as humans. But a lot of the things that uniquely make you you, the things that you're consistently grappling with, I, in my own subjective experience, am not necessarily grateful for them, but it's just like, okay, that's what I'm working with. And it's curious that the way in which I want to love, the way in which I want to impact the world seems almost like an answer, or maybe it's just a response to my previous experiences. So chicken, egg, rabbit, Easter, forget that. So I guess essentially inherent in that is my belief in reincarnation, but I won't spend a lot of time talking about that because I'm mostly concerned about my physical experience in this life. I'm more concerned about here, present, here and now. Like, I've read stuff, but like, that's not what I'm talking about. This belief about souls and us planning a lot of this stuff before we get here is why I think that we have a lot of babies and kids that just kind of like seem to be in the know. It's like, who told you that? And it's just like, well, there's no things. My focus is on what is happening in this particular experience and how we can get the most from it. Like, that's it. And so in all of my discussions about purpose and meaningful work and of being of service to the world, my main focus or the core message is that there are things that you are uniquely designed to do, that you are uniquely capable of doing, that come easily to you, that the world needs, and by your doing them, you can have more fun. Like, it all winds its way tearfully and painfully and sometimes begrudgingly to, I feel more open and now I can have more fun. I mean, I should say that with a smile. I feel more open and now I can have more fun. Because being out of alignment, having stressful, unreciprocal relationships, not having fruitful or satisfying work, like, all of those things aren't criticism, all of those things aren't punishments, but those lead to stress and anxiety and the ends not meeting, and I don't feel like I'm doing the right things, like I'm doing my absolute very best and nothing is adding up. It leads to a frustrating and stressful life. And one of the things that I will consistently talk about is how artificially hard this stuff is. There is more than plenty money for the people that need to have a lot of it to have a lot of it, and the people that need to have enough of it to have enough of it. But that's another video. But I don't want you to continue to experience that. And I don't want to promise that I have the absolute answer, but I do feel like I can get you close. I do feel like I can help you, if not get closer to your answer, not answer it, help you get closer. I can help you ask some different questions that unlock some different things, because I have been at this for a long time. A long time. I have been at this a long time, and I have fought. I have fought, I have cried, I have learned, I have done everything I could to arrive at this moment, and I feel equipped. So on this channel, I'm not just gonna parrot all the things that I've learned. I wanna be deeply practical and offer you a synthesis of all the things that I've gained to help you and me and us get closer to our own North Star, or our right direction, and all of the things that kind of block us and prevent us from getting there. Because if this would not happen, because that's not what I think Earth is about. But if you grew up with perfectly attuned parents, you wouldn't have a question of what is purpose. You would just be so deeply enthralled and lost in the work of your life that you would just be satisfied and fall out of dissatisfaction and experience life and experience sadness, experience a full range of emotions. But then you would always be able to find your way back to something that feels like it pulls the best out of you. But that's not everybody's experience, because Earth is a very dynamic place. And now you got me being cosmic. But I just want you to have things, I want you to have a life, I want it to feel true to you. And where we're going and where things are shifting, you're not very soon going to have a coherent or clear crowd that you can follow. Like the old ways, the conventional ways of being will fall apart, and you will need to be able to answer the question, what can I be up to? What do I enjoy? If I'm applying my energy to something, where can it go? Like, where would I most want to spend it? What can I be doing that can get me to turn the TV off? So I'll share tools, I'll share research, I'll share methods, things that have helped me connect to myself, things that have helped me define and gravitate towards things that I want to be up to and offer in the world in a way that feels kind of like weightless and free. It's not totally effortless, but it doesn't feel as encumbered as everything else that I've done. And I'm doing all of this so that you can be clear and certain that as far as I understand it, this is who I am. This is what I'm capable of doing. This is how I can contribute it and serve in the world in a way that's not self-sacrificing, in a way that's satisfying to me, and that is a need that other people have and that they're willing to pay for. I want you to be able to say that these are the people that I can do this work with, this play with, this joy with. These are the places that I can do it, and these are the outcomes I can, if not guarantee, get us pretty close to. And so if you're looking for compassion, you can find that here. If you're looking for understanding for how you've navigated difficult, painful circumstances, but somehow you're still standing, you can find that here. If you are looking for gentleness and sensitivity about how convoluted and kind of twisted your experience has been, you can find that here. I know better than most how heavy and how dark and how painful these experiences can be, and how challenging these lives can be. And so that is the atmosphere in which all of this happens. But the meat, the substance of the work that we'll do together is that by nature of something that we work on together, that I say, that I share, some tool that you try out, that you would leave or that you would begin to exist in a more aware, equipped, and expanded state. And you can realize that the version that you most want to embody is ready to be embodied. That it only needed you getting rid of and dropping some lies, dropping some old programming, crying a few tears, screaming a little bit because you've held it in for so long. And then after that, after wiping the tears, after getting a throat lozenge, you can say, I'm ready to step out in the world as myself. I'm ready to serve in this capacity. After all of these years of overgiving to other people, I can fill my cup enough that I don't feel resentful giving to other people. I don't feel jealous of people that can receive the love that I have to offer because I never received it. Because I now finally stopped denying myself what I have to offer and experience to myself. Like, we are going to be doing a lot of stuff here. The world is shifting and changing quickly, and I strangely feel like something I have to offer can help. And I feel like you've got some things that are helpful and that the world could use. But if you have stayed this long, I hope you've enjoyed it. I certainly appreciate it. I hope that you've enjoyed learning relatively a lot about me. But I'm strangely excited for what we are navigating to, because I do anticipate some shit. Like, I anticipate some shit. But I'm also thinking along the lines of years and decades and the scale of what we are asked to become. And I know that we have to meet this moment with creativity that we've likely never experienced before, that we've never employed before, but that is representative of what we as humans are supposed to be contributing, supposed to be experiencing, supposed to be sharing. It is a challenging opportunity, but it's an opportunity nonetheless, and we also don't have much choice. Our full participation is necessary, but that full participation needn't result or require you feeling overwhelmed. But that's another video. And so in all of this, I would love to be your partner. I would love to walk alongside you. I would love to figure out some of this stuff together, because I don't have the answers, but I'm absolutely going to question. I'm absolutely going to look across the horizon and see what I can do. And so if you enjoyed this, if you enjoy what I'm saying, and especially if you stayed this long, that or you're messy. But like, that's maybe not welcome here, but like, I go kick you out. But seriously, like, subscribe if you feel it. Let's create and offer something incredible. Like, the chaos and the distortion and the disruption out there in the world has a correlate that says there's a lot of good, there's a lot of creativity, there's a lot of magnificence that can exist, that is ready to come into the world. Who's going to bring it forth? Who's going to be responsible for doing it? And so I'm signed up. My name is on, I don't know if it's a petition or like enlistment papers. But please don't make me stand on these front lines by myself. Like, I talk a good game and like play a good game as well, but please don't leave me out here by myself. But anyway, thank you so very much. I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.